A few weeks ago, I led a nature retreat in the Cascade Mountains. I thought I knew the outdoors well. My students and I set up camp among the tall trees and clear streams. It seemed peaceful. The first night, I felt some unease in the air. It was quiet, too quiet. On the second night, I wandered away from the group. I needed some air. That's when I noticed something strange. Footprints led away from the fire pit, fading into the dark woods. They looked human, but oddly shaped, almost wrong. I convinced myself they were from an animal, a bear maybe? But deep down, I felt something heavier. The cold air coated my skin. Worry settled in my gut. As we talked about local wildlife, the footprints haunted me. I often glanced at the woods, half expecting to see something staring back. One of my students claimed they heard rustling at night. I tried to play it off. "It's just the wind, guys," I said. But my heart raced each time I heard twigs snap. I felt eyes on us, even when I couldn't see anyone. The tension grew. I asked my students if they felt watched. Most shook their heads, but a few glanced nervously at the trees. Each night, as darkness fell, the rustles grew louder. I wanted to keep everyone safe, yet doubt clouded my mind. On the third night, I heard whispering. It was too close. My heart pounded as I crept away from my tent. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced in the night. I stood by the footprints again, hesitating. I didn't want to follow them, but I felt drawn. I looked back at the fire pit. My students were asleep. The air had chilled even more. I stood frozen, wondering if anything had followed me back. I thought about calling out, but I heard something behind me. Footsteps. Not animal this time. Human. Slowly, I turned my head and felt a presence stand close. I could barely breathe. There, just beyond the light of the fire, someone watched me. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I felt paralyzed, unsure of what to do next. Then I heard a voice. "Why are you here?" My stomach dropped. I couldn't find my voice. Panic surged inside me. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. Then I saw it. The outline of a person shifting in the shadows. It looked tall and oddly shaped, like those footprints. I wanted to shout for my students, but fear left me silent. The figure took a step closer, and the fire flickered. I could see its face now. The eyes were too big, too dark. I realized those footprints weren't just a warning. They were a part of something much more sinister. The figure smiled, and a chill ran down my spine. I stood frozen, and I still don't know who or what had been watching us that night. It's been weeks, and I can't forget those unsettling footprints calling to me from the dark woods. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced, replaying the figure in the darkness. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see those large, dark eyes looking back at me. I wasn't sure what had just happened, but I knew I needed to figure it out before something worse occurred. Morning came, but the sun didn't feel warm. I gathered my students around the campfire, trying to ignore the lingering dread. "Let's go for a hike," I said, voice trembling. I thought if we moved and stayed together, it might ease our minds. They looked hesitant, but agreed. We packed some snacks and set off down a nearby trail. As we walked, I glanced back at our campsite, feeling like we were leaving something behind. The trees loomed tall, their branches casting strange shadows. I couldn't shake the impression that we were being followed. After a while, one of the students, Lily, voiced what we all felt. "I still can't shake the feeling that something is out here with us." The others nodded. Nervous glances exchanged. "We should head back," I suggested. The last thing I wanted was for them to feel scared on what was supposed to be a relaxing retreat. But there was no denying it. Fear clung to the air. On our way back, I spotted something half buried in the underbrush. I hesitated, unsure if I should investigate. "What is it?" one of the students asked, stepping closer. The curiosity in their eyes mirrored my own unease. As I approached, I knelt down to examine it. It was a collection of small bones, scattered and worn. My stomach churned. "This shouldn't be here," I murmured. The sight sent alarm bells ringing in my head. Suddenly, a chill swept through the trees, rustling the branches. The laughter from my group faded as they sensed something was wrong. "We need to move," I urged, standing up quickly. "Now." We made our way back to camp at a hurried pace. I tried to sound calm, but I wasn't fooling anyone. Once at the edge of our campsite, I noticed a change in the atmosphere. The air felt thicker, heavier, and then I saw them, the strange footprints again, closer this time. They led away from our campfire towards the deeper woods. Something told me we weren't alone. As I approached the prints, I crouched down to inspect them. "What are you doing?" a student whispered. It's like they're waiting for us to follow." My voice faltered. Something within me screamed to keep my distance, yet I felt as if the footprints were drawing me in. I stood abruptly, shouts echoing in the back of my mind. If that figure was still around, I didn't want to be the one who found it. I waved my students closer. "Let's stick together." But just as I turned around, I heard a rustle coming from the woods. I froze. Then came the whisper again. "You shouldn't have come here." It was the same voice from the night before, echoing through the trees. Panic surged through me. I grasped Lily's arm, and we all took a collective step back. "We need to leave. Now!" I shouted. But when we turned to leave, I noticed something far worse. Behind us, the fire was out, and the night was creeping back in. We stumbled back, urgency propelling us forward. The darkness thickened, wrapping around us like a cold blanket. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. "Stick together," I yelled, trying to keep my students close. Fear whispered through the trees, heightening my senses. I felt a presence hovering just beyond the edge of the light from our dying campfire. "What do we do?" Sam, one of the braver boys, asked, his voice shaky. "Just keep moving," I replied, wishing I felt more convinced. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the dark figure lurking in the shadows. Nothing was there, yet my skin prickled as if it were. We hurried along the path, the silence around us growing heavy. The woods, which had been filled with laughter and adventure just the day before, now stood ominously still. I could feel my students' fear reflected in every step. Doubt and worry mingled in the air. "We should have stayed at the camp," Lily whispered. Her voice trembled, and I wanted to reassure her, but I felt the same. "Let's just get back to the car," I said, trying to sound brave. "The sun will be up soon." But as we turned a corner, a sudden thought struck. "Wait, where's Ben?" I asked, counting heads. Panic flared when I realized one of my students was missing. "Ben!" I shouted, my voice echoing in the stillness. Silence replied. "What if—" Sam started, but I cut him off. "No, he's probably just a bit behind us. Let's go back and find him." The words felt like a plea to calm myself as much as my students. We made our way back, retracing our steps. Each crunch of leaves beneath our feet felt amplified in the quiet. "This isn't funny, Ben," I called out again, but there was no answer. Then I saw something. A flash of white caught my eye, shining in the moonlight. I bent down, realizing it was a scrap of Ben's shirt snagged on a branch. My stomach twisted in knots. "Guys, over here!" I called. They gathered around as I held up the torn fabric, their faces pale with fear. "We need to find him, now," I said, a sense of urgency flooding my voice. We pressed deeper into the woods, adrenaline coursing through me. The shadows felt closer now, as if they were watching. I could feel a weight of dread settling over us like an unsettling fog. "What if we can't find him?" Lily's voice quaked. "If we stick together, we will," I promised. But inside, doubt simmered. Just then, a sharp rustle erupted nearby, sending us all jumping. My heart raced. "What was that?" someone whispered. "I don't know," I replied, dread creeping back in. I took a step forward, and something shifted from the corner of my eye. I turned, and that's when I saw it. A figure standing just beyond the trees, watching us. A chill ran through me. I wanted to shout, to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. The figure stepped forward, barely illuminated by the shaft of moonlight. I could make out the contours of its form, and my throat went dry. Then it spoke again, a low whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "You should have listened." I felt the air thicken, and before I could react, everything went dark. When I regained my senses, the darkness had not completely lifted, but there was a faint glimmer of light flickering in the distance. It looked like the dying embers of our campfire. I staggered to my feet, disoriented. "Are you guys okay?" I called, my voice hoarse. Silence answered. Panic surged again. Did we really lose each other in the dark? I could feel my heart race, a surge of fear hammering inside my chest. "Sam? Lily?" I yelled, straining my ears for a response. Then I heard it, a soft, almost hesitant whisper not far off. "Over here." It was Sam. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I stumbled toward the sound. When I reached him, he was kneeling beside a shadow illuminated by the dim light. It was Lily, but she looked pale, her eyes wide. "What happened?" I asked, panic bubbling back up. I don't know. 1 minute we were together, and then everything went dark, just like you." Her voice trembled, and I could see her shaking slightly. "Where's Ben?" I blurted out, the gravity of our situation hitting me again. "We think he's still back there," Sam said, pointing deeper into the woods. "We tried to call for him, but he didn't answer." I took a deep breath, willing myself to think straight. "Okay, we have to go back. We can't leave him here alone." As we started moving again, the air felt heavier somehow, almost suffocating. I kept glancing back at the shadows, as if expecting the figure to emerge again. After a few moments, we reached the spot where we'd last seen Ben. There was no sign of him, but then I noticed something unusual on the ground, a series of footprints leading away from where we had been shouting for him. They were large, almost too big to belong to any of my students. "Look!" I pointed at the prints, my voice barely above a whisper. Sam knelt down to get a better view, while Lily stood back, her eyes darting nervously around. "Whose are those?" Sam asked, frowning. "I don't know," I admitted, the hairs on my neck prickling. "But we should follow them. Maybe they'll lead us to Ben." We cautiously walked along the trail of footprints, my mind racing. "What if this is a bad idea?" Lily interjected, biting her lip. "We have to try," I replied, forcing myself to sound calm, even as dread settled in my stomach. As we followed the prints deeper into the woods, the atmosphere shifted. The trees loomed over us menacingly, their branches clawing at the sky. Every sound felt amplified, the crack of a branch, the rustle of leaves. I could feel a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, as if we were not alone. Suddenly, we stopped. Ahead of us lay a clearing where the moonlight spilled through the trees. In the middle of the clearing stood a large, dark figure. My heart dropped. The figure turned, and even from a distance, I could see its eyes glinting in the moonlight, watching us. Then it took a step forward, and the air fell silent. That's when I knew we were in a world far beyond what we understood. The air around us froze, a thick tension wrapping itself around our bodies. The figure in the clearing was too large to be human, yet too vague to clearly identify. My instinct screamed to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. "Should we turn back?" Sam whispered, his voice barely audible. Before I could respond, the figure took another step. My heart raced, and in that moment I felt a surge of adrenaline pushing me forward. "We can't leave him," I insisted, raising my voice despite the tremor in my throat. Lily grabbed my arm, her grip tight. "But it might be dangerous." I wasn't sure if we should keep going. I didn't want to provoke whatever that was, but leaving without Ben felt worse. "If we can just get a closer look," I murmured. We crept closer, moving silently. The clearing felt larger with each step, swallowing our whispers. As we approached the figure, my mind raced with questions. What could it be? And why was it here? Suddenly, it shifted, the moonlight catching a glimpse of its features, a twisted mass, almost like a cloak made of shadows. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. It was like staring into a nightmare. "Ben?" I called out, hoping against hope that he would answer. There was no response, and the silence pressed down heavily on us. Just then, the figure turned its gaze towards me. I could feel its eyes piercing through the dark abyss of its form, and dread coiled in my stomach. Sam nudged me. We should go, now. But before we could retreat, I caught sight of something just behind the figure. Beneath the pale moonlight lay something familiar, a red baseball cap. My heart dropped as realization struck. It was Ben's. With a surge of determination, I shouted, "Ben! Are you there?" My voice echoed in the clearing. This time, the figure reacted. It hesitated, then took a single menacing step forward. The ground beneath us felt like it was shaking, as if the earth itself was warning us to stay away. "Get back!" I shouted, pulling Lily and Sam with me. But the figure didn't advance. Instead, it seemed to pause, studying us. "Can you hear me?" I yelled again, desperate. "We're here to help!" As if in response, a low growl rumbled from the figure, vibrating in the air around us. The sound echoed through the clearing, sending shivers down my spine. What should we do? Sam's face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Run!" Lily shrieked suddenly, grasping my arm and yanking me back the way we came. The instinct to flee surged in my veins. We turned and sprinted away from the clearing, leaving the figure behind. I glanced back for a split second, catching a glimpse of those glinting eyes still fixed on us. We stumbled through the underbrush, fear fueling our escape. My heart hammered in my chest, the weight of urgency pushing me forward. We needed to regroup and process. But where was Ben? A sudden realization crashed over me. If the figure had known we were there, what else was lurking in the woods? Then everything went dark again, the shadows closing in around us, and I felt the ground give way beneath my feet. That was when I knew. Whatever was haunting these woods wasn't finished with us yet. I tumbled down a steep slope, branches scratching my arms and legs as I fell. I landed with a thud on the forest floor, winded and disoriented. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I pushed myself up, but panic clawed at my throat. "Lily! Sam!" I shouted, trying to steady my breath. Silence answered me, thick and oppressive. My leg throbbed from the impact, but I forced myself to move, scrambling up to my feet. I couldn't stay here, exposed and vulnerable. Where were they? I scanned the trees, silhouetted against the moonlight. They must have followed me, I thought, but fear bubbled inside me at the thought of them being lost. My mind raced with so many possibilities. I stumbled deeper into the woods, calling out for them again. "Lily! Sam!" The stillness felt suffocating. Then, as I trudged through the underbrush, something caught my eye. Footprints, big, deep impressions in the mud ahead of me, leading away from where I had fallen. My stomach twisted. They didn't look like human footprints, more like misshapen claws dragging through the dirt. I hesitated. Was this a trap, or a sign of whatever had stalked us earlier? My instincts screamed for me to turn back, but dread gnawed at my mind. What if it led me to Ben? I took a deep breath and followed the trail. Each step sent a shiver down my spine. The prints twisted around tree trunks and along the rocks, as if whatever made them was moving in a hurry. The forest seemed to close in around me, shadows stretching and flickering. Finally, I reached a small clearing, and my heart dropped. There, in the moonlight, lay a torn piece of red fabric. My breath caught, the unmistakable fabric of Ben's shirt. I knelt down, trembling. What happened to him? Just then, a noise broke the silence, a snapping twig. I whipped around, adrenaline surging through my veins. Sam? Lily? No response. The air turned cold. A growl rumbled in the distance, deep and menacing. It was the same sound we had heard before. My heart raced as I strained to listen. The noise came closer. In the darkness, I could make out movement between the trees. Something shifted, its shape looming just beyond the light. I couldn't see it clearly, but I felt its presence, heavy and watchful. I stumbled back, my pulse roaring in my ears. Where were my friends? The growling intensified, echoing like thunder. I turned to flee when I saw something glinting in the moonlight, a pair of eyes reflecting back at me. I froze. The figure stepped into the clearing and my blood ran cold. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, a grotesque blend of shadow and form. Instinct kicked in. I turned, sprinting back toward the direction I had come. I could hear it following, feet pounding the ground behind me. Trees blurred as I ripped through the brush. I could feel the heat of its breath on my neck, urging me to run faster. Suddenly, I crashed into something solid, a tree. I stumbled and felt the wood scrape against my cheek as I fell. I pushed myself up, panting and disoriented. Before I could gather my thoughts, a deep voice rumbled through the air, low and almost human. I found you. That was when I knew I had to escape. But how? I bolted back, my heart hammering, desperate to put distance between me and that voice. No! I gasped, fumbling for the brush beside me. I could hear the crunching of leaves behind me as the creature moved, almost leisurely, almost playfully. The fear that coursed through my veins ignited my instincts to survive. I needed a place to hide. A bolt of pain shot through my leg, but I ignored it, forcing my body to keep moving. A massive oak tree stood near me with a hollow at its base, dark and inviting. I darted behind it, holding my breath. The growl echoed again, sharper now, as if it was savoring my fear. I pressed my back against the rough bark, willing myself to silence. My heart was pounding, each beat thundering in my ears like a warning bell. As I crouched there, the silhouettes of the trees danced around me, swaying gently as if mocking my predicament. I couldn't shake the image of Ben's shirt that I had seen earlier. The thought of him, the possibility that he was hurt or worse, made my gut twist. I can hear you, the deep voice growled, now closer. I trembled, clutching my knees to my chest. For a moment, there was stillness, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Then, the creature moved again. I saw its outline through the shadows, massive and distorted. It sniffed the air, searching, tracing the scent of my panic. Suddenly, the horrible realization struck me. It was toying with me. In that moment, I had a choice: stay hidden or risk everything. I couldn't stay trapped, waiting for whatever it was to find me. With a determination that surprised even me, I crawled out from behind the tree, my leg screaming in protest. The clearing was dimly lit, but I could see the creature more clearly now. It was hulking, with jagged edges and a grotesque face that seemed both animal and something otherworldly. My stomach churned at the sight of it. Then, I saw something glint near its feet, a piece of silver. I squinted, realizing it was something familiar. A pocket knife. Ben's pocket knife. Hope flickered for a moment, even as dread wrapped tighter around my throat. I took a step forward, my body moving involuntarily toward the knife. "Come out and play," the creature taunted, its growl shifting into a mockery of laughter. I took a shaky breath. If I was going to get Ben's knife, I had to distract it. An idea sparked in my mind. I picked up a small rock lying on the ground and threw it hard into the bushes to my left. The collision made a loud rustle, drawing the monster's attention. It turned, growling and shifting its weight, giving me precious seconds to move toward the knife. My heart raced as I lunged forward, but just as I reached for it, a hand shot out from the shadows beside me. "Zoe, is that you?" It was Lily. her face pale and eyes wide with fear. Before I could answer, a roar erupted from behind us, the creature snapping its eyes back to my direction. Now it knew I had help, and there was no mistaking its anger. "Run! Now!" Lily yelled, grabbing my arm and pulling me away. We sprinted as the ground thundered with the beast's pursuit. I looked over my shoulder, desperate to see how close it was. That was when I spotted something glimmering nearby, not just the knife. The ground was littered with more torn fabric. This time, pieces of Sam's jacket. And then I heard a noise, a new sound that sent chills down my spine. A whistle, sharp and piercing, slicing through the night. Suddenly, everything changed. The whistle echoed again, slicing through the oppressive silence of the night. It was sharp and unnatural, a sound that sent my heart racing and my mind spiraling. As the last note faded, the air thickened with tension. The creature paused, and I felt an odd stillness settle over the clearing. "What was that?" Lily whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I shook my head, not trusting my voice. I wanted to tell her to run faster, that it was still behind us, but I couldn't tear my eyes from the creature. It hesitated, its jagged silhouette outlined against the moonlight, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe it was distracted. Cautiously, I turned my gaze to Lily, who was trembling next to me. "We need to keep moving," I urged, forcing myself to speak louder than I felt. Just as we started to take another step, the creature let out a deafening roar that echoed through the trees. My instincts kicked in again. We had to find shelter. I grabbed Lily's hand, and we sprinted into the underbrush. Twigs snapped under our feet, branches whipped at our arms, but we pushed through. "Where are we going?" she asked, panic tightening her voice. "I don't know," I replied, desperation clawing at me. We dodged trees, weaving through the dense forest, trying to put as much distance between us and that thing as possible. Then I saw it, a small, abandoned ranger station tucked away behind a thicket. Its windows were boarded up, but the door hung slightly ajar. "There!" I pointed, pulling Lily toward it. We stumbled inside, gasping for breath as the door squeaked shut behind us. The interior was dark and musty, the air thick with the smell of mildew. As my eyes adjusted, I spotted a table in the center, covered in dusty maps and an old lantern. I fished for a match in my pocket, my hands shaking as I tried to strike it against the rough side. "Hurry, Zoe," Lily urged, her eyes darting to the door. "What if it finds us?" "I know," I hissed back, finally lighting the lantern. The flickering flame illuminated the space, casting shadows that danced across the peeling wallpaper. My heart pounded as reality sank in. As the lantern's glow spread, I caught sight of something in the corner. A small window stood ajar, and beneath it lay a set of muddy footprints, large, clawed, and unmistakably fresh. They led right to the door we had just closed. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting. "Lily," I whispered, my voice barely making it past the lump in my throat. She stepped closer, her eyes following mine. The realization hit us both at once. "We're not alone," she breathed, her face as pale as the moonlight outside. Suddenly, a loud thud reverberated through the old wooden door, shaking the frame and forcing us to jump back. The creature was still hunting us. I felt as if the walls were closing in, trapping us inside a nightmare. "Should we try to escape?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. I was too busy scanning the room for another way out. That was when I noticed an old climbing gear leaning against the wall, ropes and carabiners still intact. I looked at Lily, determination igniting within me. I was losing patience with being hunted. It was time to turn the tables. But before I could say anything, the door splintered, sending shards flying into the room. My heart sank as I realized the creature had its sights set on us once more. "Zoe!" Lily shouted, panic in her eyes. "We need to go now!" And that's when everything went dark. I jolted awake, the world around me still shrouded in darkness. My heart raced as I struggled to remember what had happened. The sharp crack of wood and the fear coursing through me came rushing back. I blinked, trying to adjust to the faint light of the lantern that flickered on the table nearby. Lily lay next to me, her chest rising and falling slowly. Relief washed over me. She was alive. But I didn't have much time. I had that creeping feeling that the creature was still out there, tracking us, waiting for its moment. I quietly sat up, scanning the room for any signs that would tell me where the creature might be. The door still hung open. The splintered wood was a grim reminder of our close call. With my breathing steadying, I decided we couldn't wait in this abandoned place any longer. We needed to find another exit. There were no windows on this side of the ranger station, just the jagged outline of the open door. "Lily," I whispered, nudging her, "we have to move." Her eyes fluttered open, fear flashing across her face. "What happened? Did it come in?" "Not yet, but we can't stay here. We need to get out." I nodded toward the climbing gear leaning against the wall. "We can use that." She blinked as she processed what I said, the realization that we needed to take control washing over her. We scrambled to our feet, the floor creaking beneath us. I grabbed a rope and a carabiner, handing them to Lily. "Here, we might have to climb out the back." We inched toward the door, keeping our voices low. The night was still, too still. My instincts screamed that we were being watched. I felt a chill run down my spine. As we reached the threshold, my heart sank at the sight awaiting us. The creature was outside, prowling the area like a shadow. It paused, sniffing the air, as if it could sense our very presence. We stepped back, pressing against the cold wall as fear coursed through my veins. "Zoe," Lily whispered, her voice shaking. "What do we do?" While my mind raced to find a solution, I noticed something glimmering on the floor nearby. A metal toolbox sat partially hidden beneath a pile of leaves outside the door. I gestured for Lily to stay quiet as I crept closer, hoping for tools that could offer us a fighting chance. The creature growled low, its gaze locked on the doorway. I felt the weight of my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I reached the toolbox, opening it slowly. Inside, my breath caught. There were a few small but sharp tools, a hatchet, a multi-purpose knife, and some old flares, potentially useful distractions. Just as I grabbed the hatchet, the creature lunged forward. My instincts kicked in, and I spun around, ready to fight if necessary. But then I saw Lily picking up a flare. "Can we use this?" she asked, her hands trembling. "I hope so," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "If we make noise, maybe we can distract it long enough to get away." Lily nodded, determination flooding her eyes. As the creature's silhouette loomed closer, we knew we had little time to act. We prepared ourselves, and just as I flicked the top off the flare, I felt a rush of adrenaline. The night was about to get a lot louder, and hopefully a lot safer. The flare hissed to life in my hands, fiery light bursting forth like an angry sun. I held it aloft, casting vibrant orange shadows around us. The creature halted, its eyes widening at the sudden brightness. It growled again, a low rumble that seemed to shake the very ground. But for a moment, we were shielded by the glare of the flare. "Now!" I shouted, throwing the flare out toward the edge of the clearing as far as I could. It whistled through the air before hitting the ground and igniting the underbrush, flames licking hungrily at the leaves. The light expanded with crackling embers, illuminating the dark corners of the forest and casting grotesque shadows of the trees. The creature turned toward the flare, momentarily distracted. The shifting of its massive form sent ripples through the woods, and I seized my chance. "Let's go," I urged Lily, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the back exit of the ranger station. We crept through the door, hearts racing, keeping low and trying to blend into the shadows created by the blazing flare. I could hear the creature's growls fading into the distance, but dread still twisted in my gut. There was no time to think about whether we were truly safe. "Where's the trail?" Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper, filled with urgency. I squinted against the glow of the fire, scanning the horizon. A narrow path wound its way through the thicket just a few feet away, inviting us to freedom. "There, just ahead," I pointed. We stumbled toward it, nervous glances over our shoulders, listening for sounds that signaled the creature had turned and was pursuing us once more. The flame from the flare danced spuriously, casting flickering light as we hurried through the dense brush. "Do you think it'll follow us?" Lily panted, her breath hitching with every step. "I don't know," I replied, my mind racing as I navigated the underbrush. "But if we keep moving, we'll at least have a better chance." The thick trees pressed in around us, their trunks ancient and gnarled. My heart raced as I pushed through the branches, leading Lily down what felt like a precarious trail. Each step felt heavy, the shadows whispering threats in my ears. Suddenly, I heard a rustle behind us, not the creature, but rather the sound of voices, familiar, frantic voices. "Zoe! Lily!" It was Sam. Relief flooded through me like sunlight through clouds. "Here! We're over here!" I shouted, waving my hands as loudly as I dared, beckoning him closer. Moments later, Sam emerged from the underbrush, eyes wide and terror-stricken. "What happened to you? I thought I lost you too." He rushed over, glancing back nervously toward where we had just come from. "Long story. We need to move," I said. "The creature is out there." "Did you see it?" Sam hissed, eyes darting. "Not up close," I admitted, but my heart ached with the thought of Ben. "But we don't know if it's taken him, or if he's... My voice trailed off, dread hanging between us. "We have to find him," Sam said with determination. "He could be somewhere in the woods." "I know, but we can't just wander aimlessly. We need a plan," I said, trying to think straight. "There's safety in numbers. If we can find a higher vantage point, maybe we can form a strategy." I was trying to convince myself as much as them. "There's a lookout point not far from here," Sam said. "If we can make it there, it could help us see if he's nearby." "Lead the way," Lily urged. We began moving toward the lookout, still peering back nervously for any sign of the creature or Ben. My mind raced with anxiety and fear, but now there was something else. Hope. We might find him. We might escape. As we climbed, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on us. The woods felt alive, and I began to question whether it was merely the haunting of shadows or something more ominous. Finally, we reached the lookout point. The view was magnificent. I could see the vast expanse of trees stretching into the horizon. "Ben!" I shouted at the top of my lungs, hoping against hope. The sound echoed through the valley, but there was no response except for the rustling of leaves beneath the breeze. "What if he can't hear you?" Lily whispered, biting her lip. I gripped the edge of the lookout and stared into the void of the forest. "He has to be okay. We have to believe that." Just then, a rustle from the tree line caught our attention. Adrenaline surged through my veins again. I turned, heartsick and fearful, only to freeze at the sight that met my eyes. The figure emerged once more, silhouetted beneath the canopy. It stood there in the distance, watching us, its eyes glinting with a palpable hunger. But just as I felt the panic rise, something else moved from behind the massive bulk. "Ben!" I screamed with everything I had, my voice breaking. A figure stumbled into view, his form weary and bruised. He looked confused, dazed from the night, but alive. Relief hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. The creature hesitated, as if sensing the shift in energy. "Move! Get him!" I shouted. Lily and Sam sprang into action, rushing toward him while I stayed on guard, watching for what the figure would do next. "Keep going!" I shouted. "Don't look back!" But just as Ben reached us, the creature roared again, this time more furious, sending a shiver through my chest. Every instinct pushed me to run. "We have to get back to the trail," I urged as we began to descend from the lookout, Ben wobbling beside us. We sprinted down the tree-lined path together, not daring to look behind us again. The crushing weight of the night pressed in heavily, but we had each other now. Out of nowhere, I caught sight of the glimmer of our campfire in the distance, hope igniting in my chest. Just a bit further, and we could reach safety. I focused on my friends, urging them forward, but a growl echoed behind us, the forest vibrating under the weight of the creature's steps. It was relentless. I still don't know if whatever haunted those woods could be explained, or if it was something more, a monster birthed from the dark heart of fear. The woods took much from us that night. As we pushed onward, adrenaline fueling us through the undergrowth, I couldn't shake the feeling that something dark still lingered around us, as if it had entwined itself forever into the fabric of these woods.